Remember this?
We are delivering the greatest games lineup in Xbox history.
Yeah, me too. That was back in 2015 when Microsoft were telling us they were going to deliver the best lineup in Xbox games history. And, well, it wasn't really, was it? Not really. And from there on in, Sony went on to dominate with some of the best games of this generation. So we didn't really get what Microsoft was promising. And I suppose arguably you could say it was their best lineup, but you'd have to be stretching the point somewhat. And, you know, before anyone starts having a go at me and saying I'm an Xbox hater, which is quite amusing. If you know me and my history, you'd know that is extremely amusing. We've had this sort of thing from Sony as well. You know, do you remember back with the PlayStation 2, I think it was, with the Emotion Engine, which was basically just a 128-bit processor with a fancy name. And, you know, Microsoft's shenanigans with Kinect. And we've had similar stuff from, well, loads of different companies relating to games and all sorts of stuff. I mean, even Nintendo go down this road. I mean, they were trying to sell us on their online. And they've been, you know, hyping all sorts of things over the years. Even going so far as to try and convince us that the tech in the Joy-Cons was all new tech. And let's be honest, it wasn't really all new tech. It was just repurposing of the tech and improving the tech that was in the Wii's Wiimotes. So, you know, they're all guilty of it is what I'm trying to say. But the purpose of this video isn't really to have a go at these companies specifically. It's more to talk about how we get hyped and we get sucked in by these things and how we need to temper our expectations somewhat. Because we had that from Microsoft in 2015 and now recently we've had Phil Spencer tweeting out that we're going to be getting 14 first-party games for the Xbox at this year's E3. And while I've no doubt we will be getting 14 first-party games in some shape or form, we're not going to be getting 14 big hitters as new games, are we? We'll get a few first-party games that are new. We're going to get Halo, we're going to get Gears. We'll probably see some stuff relating to Fable. And you know, there will be some surprises, but a lot of this stuff is going to be add-ons for first-party stuff and things like that. So, again, what I'm saying is we need to temper our expectations. Because we've seen this over the years with various things where people get so hyped. And I looked at Phil Spencer's tweet and I was looking at the responses to it and people were getting, well, extremely excited and jumping for joy. And look, you know, we've not seen anything yet. E3 hasn't happened yet, or at least Microsoft's E3 conference hasn't happened yet. And so we should really get excited, get interested, listen to what he has to say, listen to what the other guys at Xbox have to say, but reserve judgment and wait until we actually see what they're going to present. And I'm sure it will be interesting and it will be exciting, but as ever, please, we should take it with a pinch of salt. Because what happens is everyone gets overhyped and overinterested and then they get disappointed. And some people start having a go. And then other people start defending Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo or whoever else it might be. I mean, you know, as I said before, we've seen it with games. We saw it with Anthem, all the hype surrounding Anthem. And look what happened to that game. And people were still defending that right up until release and even after release. And yet it wasn't what was promised. It was far less than was promised. And we see it time and time and time again. All the hype and hyperbole gets everybody all excited and agitated and they all start whooping and hollering and acting like complete idiots for very little. And then reality hits and we get the backlash. And we saw this, the most obvious one for me was with No Man's Sky. And the hype train there was ridiculous. And look, some of the concepts for No Man's Sky were great and I like what they were offering. And I like the fact they were talking about it was going to be like the golden age of science fiction, and I loved all that stuff. But when the actual game dropped, it was far less than was expected. But it was also held back. The release date was put back. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but Jason Schreier broke that news. And He got death threats. Death threats for doing his job and providing us with information. Just think about that for a moment. All these people getting super hyped for a video game who get to the point where they're so worked up that they then send out death threats to somebody for delivering some news. Talk about killing the messenger. And we've seen this most recently with Game of Thrones. People had got so invested into the program, they put so much into it, and they expected so much from it, that when it got to the end and it didn't deliver exactly what they were expecting, and I don't know what they were expecting, but hey, who knows? When it didn't deliver exactly what they wanted, they got agitated and annoyed and upset over a TV program. And the fact is, the people who made this program, sweat blood to produce the program. And they produced a solid, excellent piece of entertainment. And I had some issues with some of the way they developed the characters towards the end. But nevertheless, it was well done. And it actually did have an ending. I saw someone somewhere compare it to Lost, which I thought was a travesty of a statement. But there you go. But, that's my opinion on it. The point there is not about whose opinion's right. The point is that people were getting up in arms over something that was just entertainment. And this is the problem with the world we live in now. People get too invested into things. They get too excited about things. And they're inevitably going to be disappointed. And so, coming back to E3 and what's happening at the moment and all the hype train, what's going to happen is we're going to get some backlash after the fact. It's bound to happen. And so what I'm saying to you guys out there and what I'm saying to myself is, yeah, get excited. Of course we should get excited. Like a kid waiting for his birthday. E3 is exciting. These TV programs, these games, this hardware that companies like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo and others that are coming into the market now, these pieces of hardware that they're producing and the games that they're putting out, yes, of course we should get excited about them. And yes, we should get interested about them. God, I've got a YouTube video channel that is all about games, or almost exclusively about games. Of course, I'm excited for games. I'm interested in games. But we need to keep a lid on it. Let's not get too carried away. I remember years ago when I was reading fantasy novels back as a teenager, and I used to buy magazines because back then we had to get magazines because there was no internet to speak of. And I can't remember the name of the magazine, but I read an interview with a writer called Anne McCaffrey. Now, I don't know if you guys know who Anne McCaffrey is, but Anne McCaffrey wrote the Dragon Riders of Pern novels. And I didn't read all of them, but I read a fair few of them. And I remember in the interview she was talking about her fans and how most fans knew a lot about the subject. They knew a lot about the books, and in some cases they knew more about it than she did. And, some of the fan theories and all this kind of stuff. But she actually said, and I can't remember her exact words, but she was saying that, some fans take it too far. They get so invested in it that they are almost living in the world rather than realizing that it's a fiction. And we see this with all sorts of drama and video games and whatever it might be. People get so invested and so interested that they get really annoyed with the author or the writers or the producers or the actors or whoever it might be involved when they don't deliver it in exactly the way they wanted and were expecting. And somehow they feel they have a say in that. And you don't, not really. This is art. This is created by somebody else. They sit down and they try, if they're doing their job properly, they try and create a worthwhile piece of art. And it's up to you to consume that art and to decide for yourself whether it's any good or not. And yeah, if you don't like it, fine. But just be civil and responsible and sensible about your opinions. If I say I thought that the story arc of Daenerys was a little bit too fast, for my liking. And yes, I did think they foregrounded what was going to happen to her, and I could see it coming. But if I say that I think it happened a little bit too fast in the final season, and I would have liked them to have taken a little bit longer to develop that character, because, you know, we knew about the madness in her family. If they'd have spent a little bit longer on that, I would have been a bit more happy. But that's as far as I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to start yelling and shouting and getting annoyed because they did it in a different way to how I personally would have done it if I'd have been writing it. And let's be honest, the people writing it did a better job than I would have done because they're professional writers and I'm not, and they've been doing it for years. And yeah, sometimes these people do get things wrong. But if they're doing their best work and they're trying to produce the best show or game or whatever it is they can, then we owe it to them to give them a little bit of leeway. When it gets more problematical is when we do get into things like the hype train. And you look at things like E3 and you get 14 first-party games with no kind of explanation of as to what that means. It's almost inevitable that it's going to be disappointing on some level. And when back in 2015 they came out with the best games lineup in Xbox history, well, anyone paying attention probably should have realised that that was hyperbole. And so we should have been a bit more careful than maybe some of us were. And then we wouldn't have been so disappointed. So look, I know I'm going on a bit and I know I'm repeating myself somewhat, but the takeaway from this should be that let's approach this with a level head. Let's approach E3 with a level head. Let's approach the games industry with a level head. Don't take all the hype and all the hyperbole to heart, and then you won't get so disappointed. Yes, be excited. Yes, look forward to games that are coming out. Yes, look forward to the hardware that's coming out and the peripherals and everything and all the stuff around it. Yes, be excited about it. But take some of the claims with a pinch of salt, and then when things turn out to be not quite what you were expecting, you won't be quite so disappointed. And please, whoever you are, if you're out there and you're watching these things, don't start issuing death threats and having a go at people just because they have done something you don't like, or they've given you a story that you didn't want, or they've given you a bit of news that isn't what you were expecting. I mean, you know, if it's somebody just delivering a fact, like a game is going to be later, there's nothing they could have done about it and there's nothing you could do about it. All you can do is just accept it and move on. So yeah, all I'm saying is just keep a level head. Don't get wrapped up in the hyperbole. And everyone will be a lot happier. But have fun. Anyway, look, that's me done. I'm going to move away from this and I'm going to go and grab myself a cup of tea, which I am looking forward to. But if it's a little bit too milky or someone puts sugar in it, I'm not going to get angry about it. And in this case, I'm making it myself. So the only person I'd get angry with would be myself. Right, anyway, that's me done. I will speak to you in the next one. Bye.